Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to part 2 of the SAVE Act discussion. Are you ready to find out what Sharon says to upset me so much? Let's get right into it.
1/5. There you go. Okay. What I am saying is citizenship provides individuals with a sense of national belonging and identity. Okay. It allows individuals to participate in the political, social, cultural life, which 20% of our population already gets to be a part of all of that, whether they're citizens or not. They already get to experience all the political, social, and cultural life and benefits of the U.S. There is a belonging of nationalism that is important. And I guess this is the other thing that kind of came into my mind, and you're really going to be upset when I say
yes, that. I probably am.
If 20% of our population are immigrants, not if, 20% of our population are immigrants, we've already proven that. The Pew Research Center has proven that. If all of those are naturalized citizens, then all of them are voting. They came to this country for a reason, and it was probably to be able to benefit from the political, social, and cultural benefits that this country provides. And they left their country for those reasons. But then they're coming here, and now they're going to be allowed to vote and potentially change the fabric of our structure.
That's a stretch. That is a stretch. You're saying that 20% is going to change the whole structure of the United States? And correct me if I'm wrong, was the U.S. founded by immigrants, or was it founded by Native Americans? So why is that? Even if you go down the path of those 20% have the right to vote, maybe they're bringing their own ideology, which is not even one country's ideology. 20% of immigrants is not immigrants from one country. It's immigrants from all over the world. So in your mind, it's just non-American culture coming in and taking over the American culture and changing things. But that's not the reality, because you have people from Africa, you have people from Europe, you have people from Asia, all these people, and you're assuming that they all have the same ideology and they're all going to change and want the same laws implemented that go against what you want.
No, I never said that.
Well, then why are you worried about it? Why are you worried about it?
Change. But I already said it will still change the fabric of the U.S. And hang on, you said, oh, but that 20% can't change anything because it's only 20%. Then why?
It's 20% from different people all over the world.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're still going to influence, because if we say every vote counts, then those 20% are voting, and every vote
wow.
counts.
I mean, this just sounds way too similar to me.
Like a nationalist?
Yes.
Like I'm a nationalist?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I do.
No, nationalist in a bad way. Nationalist in a bad way. When you make comments like those people are coming over and changing the ways that we do things, do you listen to that?
No, I said they could.
Well, there's no difference. There's no difference. Your fear is that those people, they're not like me. They could come over. They are coming over and changing the way that we do things. Who are they? Tell me, who are they? They're just people.
Wait. You're saying they're not because they're from different countries.
I'm saying that they're just people. It doesn't even matter who they are. They're coming in and they're voting. They're in the U.S. now. They are in a Western culture, and they came there for a reason, because they wanted a better life for themselves and their families. And if they're voting differently than you, it's just because they're voting along their interest, which is the same thing that you're doing. Why do you think that their interests are so different than yours?
Because they're fleeing a country that they didn't like living in.
They could be fleeing that country for God knows how many reasons. It could be personal safety. It could be just financial opportunities. It could be dictatorship. It could be a lot of different things. Why do you think that they would be voting in a way that would go against what you would stand for? This is one of the main reasons we wanted to do this podcast, was to show everyone that all people in the beginning, down in their hearts, have the same desires and needs. They want safety. They want security. They want prosperity. and they want a pursuit of happiness. And this is what the U.S. was founded on. And it concerns me when I hear you say things like, those people are coming over and they're voting for things that they want, and that's not what I want, and therefore they shouldn't be allowed to do that.
No, you're misinterpreting what I said.
Okay. What are you saying?
What I am saying is they had a structure in their country that they didn't like, so they came to our country. And regardless of where they're from, and I have friends from those other countries that now live in this country and are voting, and they are voting the same way and for the same support structures and governments that they had in the previous countries that they came from. So this isn't just me assuming this is going
Sharon,
on.
They can't be, because the same things are
though.
not on the ballot. The same things, the same issues are not on the ballot. And if they are, because we still are a two-party system. So the issues that are on the ballot usually represent either left-leaning or a right-leaning viewpoint. Do you agree with that or not? Do you see things on the ballot that are representative of what they are doing in these countries that you are so fearful of? What? Name one.
Yes.
Name one.
Yes, I do. Like saying that anybody can come into our country without even documents.
There's no law on our books that says that. There is no law on our books that says that, except for people seeking asylum, safety. And every country in the world has that, just about. What law is on the books that said that we can let anyone in our country without any documentation?
He said, well, it may not have been a law, but it was put out there.
By who?
Administration.
No, it wasn't. There was no law on the books or even presented that said you do not need any documentation to come into this country. You did go down a rabbit hole.
I said there was not. Okay, I did say when you have laws saying that, and I was wrong in that.
Well, you were saying your whole premise is that they are voting for laws, and they can't vote on issues that haven't already been vetted or put forth by the elected representatives of this country. So now you're saying the elected representatives are putting forth laws that represent the views of other countries, foreign countries?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, if you're saying that you're worried that people are going to vote for something that represents what they fled in their home country, then you're assuming that the laws that are being put forth for them to vote on represent the foreign countries, the laws in the foreign countries. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm not saying that. There are. I mean, if you look, it's not like you're trying to be very, very literal with the laws and policies, and it's not that literal.
It's because it's the terminology. You say that you're worried that these people are voting in ways that want to turn the U.S. into the country that they fled from. Why do you think they fled? Why would any immigrant want to come to the U.S. and turn the U.S. into a country that they fled from or that they moved away from?
I don't know. I've asked some of my friends that left those countries of dictatorships, but yet are voting for a socialistic type of
So you associate socialism with dictatorship. So this goes down to party issues.
Communism usually comes from socialism.
This goes down to party issues. This is not about immigrants voting. This is about party politics, because the left and the right say the same thing about both sides. I see comments from the left and I see comments from the right. And the terminology that people are using on both sides is exactly the same. That the Trump administration are the Nazis and that the Biden administration are the Nazis. So it really just depends on which side of the political spectrum you are coming from as to, and when you are afraid of something, you start, not you, but people start attacking, and they're using the same terminology on both sides.
What terminology did you just say?
That it's Nazis, that it's socialism, that it's going to be communism, that we're going to have a dictatorship. I see the same comments coming, the exact same comments being used against both sides. So it really just depends.
I didn't call anybody a socialist.
No, but you said your friends are trying to vote for socialist policies, which that's really just, you think that all democratic policies are socialist policies.
No, I don't.
Well, how could they not be voting for anything other than democratic parties, or you would agree with them?
No.
You're saying, what I hear you saying is, my friends are coming in and they are supporting ideologies and socialist policies that is representative of the dictatorships where they came from. They can't vote for anything that isn't on the table. And the only policies that are being put on the table to the American people are either coming from a democratic Party or a Republican Party. That's it. Those are the only things being put on the table.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, because you're on the Republican side right now, you are saying that the Democratic parties are socialist and are representative of dictatorships.
I never said the Democrats are socialist. I said some of the policies represent more socialistic ideology.
But what you're saying is that
all Democrats
and that those, you worry that those policies, because you said my friends are coming in and voting for these policies that they left in their dictatorship countries.
Yes,
well, then you
so
equate those policies with dictatorships. So you equate
or socialistic ideologies. But let me ask you this. Why are you okay with the fact that people who left those countries and those types of governments, it's okay for them to come and vote for the party in this country that supports those type of ideologies? Why is that okay?
But Sharon, you just said it. You think, you said that they come and support the party that represents those ideologies. So you equate the Democratic Party with something negative. This is what we're trying to get against.
Wait.
No, this is what we're trying to fight against. You cannot sit there and say that they are wrong. They're coming in and supporting these bad policies when they're just Democratic policies. If I said the same thing about Republican policies, you would attack me.
I knew this one was going to be really heated. I knew it was.
That's because you went down a rabbit hole. What I hear you saying, let me repeat again what I hear you saying.
No. You've already said it. Let me respond. So you are correct in what you just said about me saying or assuming that those ideologies from those other countries that I think are very similar to the Democratic Party in this country, I am equating those as the same. And I'm going to say you're absolutely right. I am. But my question back to you is, if they're so good, if those aren't negative policies, then why are people fleeing them?
The problem is that you think that they're the same policies. I don't. I don't see them as the same policies. It's just how you're viewing it through your opposing lens. That's it. Because
we're going to need to have a podcast.
If the tides were, if the situation was flipped and it was a Democrat, if it was Biden in office right now, and I was on the side saying, well, we're supporting these Republican policies. I mean, I could say the exact same thing about Republican policies that I think that they're representative of a dictatorship, and a lot of people are saying that right now about the current administration's policies.
Yeah.
So to me, it's no different.
So I think we should have a podcast on the different ideologies.
Why?
Well, first of all, I think it'd be an interesting conversation. But do you understand why I am sensing that they are negative?
Because you're on the opposite side. You're on the opposite side of the political spectrum.
Well, no, it's because why would you want to flee a country or leave
Again, I go back to, you think they're the same policies. I don't. These people that are voting for them probably don't think they're the same policies either.
Okay, that's why I'm saying I think we need to have a podcast on that. I think,
but again, we're never going to agree on that. We're never going to agree on that.
That's not true.
But my issue is it really has nothing to do with that. Going back to the issue of voting. You have a problem with people. You think that immigrants are voting for things that you disagree with. Would you be okay if all of those immigrants were voting for Republican policies?
No, because again, that was just one aspect. One of the reasons I went down this rabbit hole of naturalization is because I felt like 3-year minimum.
Okay, what's the time frame? What's the time frame that you think is okay?
No, I'm not saying that there should be. I'm just saying I wanted to discuss this with you, okay? The whole criteria around naturalization, because I feel like 3 years.
Well, I'm saying that's fine. If you think 3 years is not long enough, what criteria would be acceptable to you?
I don't know, but I think it's something that we need to look at as a country. I think we need to look at, because it'd be interesting to me. And I did not go down this rabbit hole because, like I said, I spent 2-3 hours researching, and I didn't go down the rabbit hole of looking up what other countries' naturalization policies were, to see, is this kind of standard around the world that you only have to live somewhere for 3 years in order to become a naturalized citizen?
You're focusing in on that 3 years, and I think you need to do a little bit more research on that, because again, I have never met anyone that it only took them 3 years.
Again,
that may be the minimum, but I think that is a rarity rather than the standard.
This is the form and process, okay? This is the form and process you fill out. And it says, if you have lived in this country for 3 to 5 years, go to attachment A. And then attachment A just asks you, are you married to a U.S.
Well, that is
citizen?
the beginning. What you don't understand is that is the
No, I
beginning of the
understand what you're
process.
saying.
It still
No,
takes
no,
like 7 to 10
understand.
years.
I understand what you're saying.
Well, you're saying you're making this assumption. You're putting it out there that it's like in 3 years you get naturalization, and that's not the case. In 3 years you may be able to start the process, and that's it. You can start the process after 3 years of living in the country.
Okay, so
and from
let's
then
go with your example.
you go to 7 to 10
so
years.
let's say it takes 7 years. Let's say it takes 7 years.
That's still not enough for you.
Plus the 3. Hang on. Plus the 3. So then it's 10 years. No, that actually makes a little bit more sense.
Well, that's real. That's the reality of what is happening.
Okay, then I'm fine.
Wow.
Then I'm fine.
Wow. Just wow.
I knew this one was going to be one that you and I were going to be totally.
Because it kind of because I think we're on the same page with the SAVE Act, pretty much. That.
But I also knew, I figured we would probably be on the
So you wanted something else to talk about?
No, it was just when
it's like, I know something that'll get under her skin. Let's talk about immigrants.
I know something that'll make this interesting. No, but when I did start researching just the SAVE Act, I'm like, yeah, she and I are probably going to agree on that. But then when I saw the naturalization, I'm like, oh, let me look into this, Then I started reading. I'm like, I'm not too sure about that. So I just think 3 years is a little bit minimum. But now you're saying, well, it's a minimum of 7-year process after you're able to.
That 3 years, that 3 years is.
And then I'm like, okay, well, 10 years living in our country.
Yeah,
I feel better about that.
The average is more 7 to 10 years. It's a long process. And you're not guaranteed. Again, you're not guaranteed.
To me, doesn't that make sense? You should prove that you do want to live here and be here.
I never said anything against the process. I just disagreed with you that it was only 3 years because I've never known it to be only 3 years.
You can actually apply under 3 years, but you won't be eligible.
Yeah.
But
so you're not even eligible to
apply
for 3 years unless you've lived there for 3 years.
Oh, you can apply.
And there are,
not eligible.
Yeah. And there are a lot of restrictions.
But at 3 years.
So yeah. And I think you're going to find that is on par with a lot of other countries as well.
But you know what? I was reading through.
So what do you feel about Trump selling citizenship for $5 million? You didn't know he was doing that?
I don't watch the news.
He's giving away citizenship, selling citizenships. He's calling them gold passes or something for $5 million a pop, which a lot of countries, which is not unusual. A lot of countries have laws where you can go and buy for $250,000 or more. If you invest that much in the country, you can, or pay that much, you can buy.
I don't like that. Wow. I don't like that. I haven't looked into it because that's the first time I've heard of it. Look, that's the first time I've heard of it is from you. Of course, I don't listen to the news.
I know, really. You got to start watching the news.
No, I don't.
Well, you're not knowing. Well, how can you not want to know what's going on in your own country at all?
Wait a minute. How many times have you and I discussed how crappy the media is?
Yeah, but we also know we're smart enough to know that you hear something and you go and you research it.
Yeah, I don't have time to research everything. This was 3 hours.
That doesn't. And you got bad information.
Hours. And I did not get bad information.
You misinterpreted. You misinterpreted the information. Because you came at me saying it's only 3 years, and that is not true.
That's when you get to apply. Is it 3 years?
Apply. That's not when you get it. The application process is years long.
How do you know that takes 7 to 10 years for the application process?
Do you know how many of my friends were immigrants into the U.S.?
No.
A lot. A lot. I had a lot of friends that were not born in the U.S. that had immigrated to the U.S. and had to go through that process.
But you know what? But this is the naturalization.
Exactly.
It's
through marriage,
actually
through working, through living.
What? You also could just become a citizen by just taking the exam, studying and taking the exam.
That's not true.
And not have to go through the. No, I read that.
No. You can't just show up for the exam and take it and then be a citizen. You have to go through the whole process.
apply.
You have to apply and you have to go through the process.
Okay, so we agree that it's okay to have proof of citizenship to register to vote.
Yes, with caveats.
You think it's going to disenfranchise people. I don't think it will, because they have a year to gather those documents to register to vote.
Well, again, it wasn't just about getting the documents. For one, I think when I first heard it, again, the media did a bad, piss poor job of talking about what it really meant. It's not bringing your document on voting day. It is about registering to vote. So yes, you have time to do that, but it is disenfranchisement for people who do not have their birth certificate or do not have access to their birth certificate.
But that usually is a phone call to request it. Like
sometimes it's not. Things happen. Something. It's just, there are going to be instances where people who could have voted or would have easily gone to vote think it's too much trouble to get their birth certificate to go through that process. I'm just saying it's making the whole process more difficult for a reason that isn't valid, because the reason is because we have too many illegal people voting, and that is not true.
But again, you're assuming that that's the reason.
I'm assuming that based on the fact that there is no documented evidence that it is an issue.
But also, we've already talked about at the very beginning that the Senate's probably not going to pass it. And that may be, we're assuming again, that may be the reason, is because they're not seeing any, proof. So why are we even talking about this? Like, it's not even going to be passed. So
that's true. It's probably not even going to be passed.
Voters.
I know, but it did go off on a very interesting, it did go off onto a very interesting topic.
Well, that's only because I did a lot of research and went down a rabbit hole, and I knew it was going to be a conversation.
All right. So we can wrap this one up and never talk about the SAVE Act again, right?
Oh, no, but we're going to talk about immigration again, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even use my notes, really.
Yay!
You pulled yours out, though. Look at this. Look at this.
Look at that. Look at that.
All right. Well, it's been
most Americans favor policies requiring voters to show an ID, like a photo ID at the time they vote. But
yeah, that's not a big deal. I mean, yeah, of course, because you should be on the register. You should be on the list.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how this is going to impact people registering to vote and people that maybe can't get there to show their birth certificate. Or I think it is
people
going
can get places. They get down to the McDonald's and the gas station. They can get over to the voter registration courthouse.
You're making a broad assumption there. There are people. I'm not saying it's the vast majority. I'm not saying it's the vast majority.
You're making a broad assumption that there aren't ways for people to get places.
I'm saying that it makes it more difficult. You're making it more difficult. And the people that are below the poverty level now not only have to take time off of their work that a lot of times it's difficult to do to go and vote, they have to take time off to go and get their birth certificate if they don't have it, try to track down a copy of it, and then go and register in person.
But
again, it just makes it a little bit harder.
It may take a little,
it just makes it a little bit harder. Again, I understand.
You need to put forth a little bit of effort to do.
Again, if it were worth doing, that's where you and I disagree, because I don't think it's worth doing, because illegal voting is not a big enough issue to make.
No, and that's fine. But to me, it's the principle of the thing. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't want in order to non-citizen,
you don't want illegals, or you don't want immigrants voting.
That I didn't say that. I never said that. You keep putting words in my mouth, and I never said that.
That's so easy.
I said we just need to look at the naturalization.
I'm putting your words back in your mouth.
No, I never said that. Now, do you think that federal voting should be a national holiday?
Yes, absolutely.
So that people. Okay, I figured that.
Do you?
But, yeah, I mean, I hate standing in those lines, and if it was a holiday where people get, it's just difficult to get there like before and after. It's not difficult, but it's just time consuming. But it's one day a year usually, or one day every 4 years or something. I mean, it depends on what,
if you only vote in federal elections, yeah, it's only one day every 4 years.
Yeah. Well, but that's what they're saying. To make it a national holiday, it'd be a federal election. It's not every once in every 4 years, because you do have senators and House of Representatives that you vote for in between those 4 years for president.
True. I do also think it should be mandatory. But if it's mandatory, I think you should get time off to do it.
That voting should be mandatory?
Yes.
Wow, that's a podcast. Let's talk about that next.
I don't think it is, because that's my only statement. I think it should be mandatory.
Wow. Oh, we need to dive into that one. We'll do that one. Let's put that on our list.
Okay. Well, until next time, we'll have to decide on a calmer topic that next time that we don't go down rabbit holes for. Even though I don't go down rabbit holes.
Oh, yes, you do.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
I'm just a little bunny over here, just hopping along.
Until you fall down a rabbit hole.
All right. We'll see you next week then. Bye.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreedtodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.